Police arrest 5 local people in connection with alleged employment scams in Southeast Asia. The holding center for elderly COVID patients in Tin Shui Wai will commence operation on Thursday. And government forces in Somalia end a 30-hour attack on a hotel by al-Qaeda-linked militants. Hello and welcome to TVB News. Hong Kong police said they had arrested 5 local people in connection with alleged employment scams in Southeast Asia. Officers said they have received requests for assistance from 36 Hong Kongers so far. 22 of them are believed to remain captive overseas. Christy Khan tells us more.
Speaking to reporters at a press briefing this morning, the police said they had arrested 3 men and 2 women aged between 17 and 51 who have been allegedly working for a scam syndicate. Officers said the arrested were suspected of posting fake job advertisements online with profitable salaries to lure victims to work in Southeast Asian countries. Additionally, the syndicates will arrange air tickets for the duped individuals to fly aboard themselves. Sometimes they would send members to accompany or monitor the victims. The police meanwhile gave an update on the number of suspected victims, saying they had received 36 requests for help from Hong Kongers so far. 14 of them are confirmed to be safe. Among those, 11 have returned to Hong Kong. The rest of the cases are believed to be captive in Myanmar and Cambodia. Police said they aren't in touch with 9 detainees for the time being, but they believe the personal safety of those who remain captive is not a problem, citing that they haven't received any reports of long-term physical abuse so far. They added that it is difficult for them to conduct investigations anyway.
Because the whole operation of this scam operation, they're located overseas, there are certain difficulties for us to gather information and also to difficulties in gathering evidence to prosecute or even to identify those suspects.
The police said they are using all means, including Interpol, to gather more information and evidence to rescue the victims. Also, they want residents to be aware of online job efforts which offer high salaries regardless of relevant work experience. Most of the advertised jobs are in relation to casinos or real estate in Southeast Asia. The Immigration Department meanwhile said that they had received more than 100 requests for help via the new WhatsApp hotline. 4 of the cases were suspected to be employment scams. However, the rest of the reports were unconnected. Secretary for Security Chris Tant called on residents not to misuse the new hotline. Christy Khan, TVB News.
And back here at home, Hong Kong reported some 6,500 new cases of COVID-19 today, the 4th day in a row that the city's daily caseload exceeded 6,000. And infections linked to the BA.5 Omicron subvariant have risen to some 34% of the total daily cases. Caleb Leung has more details.
The city reported 6,513 new COVID-19 infections today, including 6,276 locally transmitted cases. 3 more people succumbed to the coronavirus. The deceased, aged between 65 and 81, all suffered from chronic illnesses or cancer and were unvaccinated. Residents of Fook Court Nursing Center in Sai Kung were evacuated to Asia World Expo for quarantine last Thursday after the care home reported multiple infections.
The first case involved personal care workers who might have direct face-to-face contact with residents. She was tested positive by our AT on the 12th of August, and subsequently, upon PCR screening among the residents and also other staff in this RCHE, subsequently we identified more cases.
So far, 16 of the 27 residents of the care home, as well as 3 staff members, have been infected. In light of the rising number of COVID cases in recent days, the holding center at Tin Shui Wai Sports Center will commence operation this coming Thursday. The holding center will receive elderly COVID patients who are asymptomatic or showing mild symptoms. With 130 beds, the center provides basic meals and nursing support without charge. The sports center will be temporarily closed starting tomorrow until further notice. In its latest blog post, Secretary for Health Lo Chong-mao noted that some 6,400 children aged between 6 months and 3 years old have so far received their first Sinovac jab. The authorities started vaccinating children of this age group early this month. Lo urged the public to listen to experts' advice and get fully vaccinated with the third jab as soon as possible. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
The latest official to be infected with COVID is ICAC Commissioner Wu Yingming. Wu tested positive via a nucleic acid test and is now awaiting quarantine arrangements from health authorities. He last went to work on August 19th, and Wu has no recent history of travel. Meantime, the new school year is just around the corner, but some Hong Kong students attending mainland universities might not be able to start school on time due to border restrictions. The city's education chief says discussions are underway on whether extra quarantine slots could be arranged for these students. Jackie Lin with details.
For another year, the pandemic and quarantine troubles frustrate back-to-school plans for some students set to study on the other side of the border. As normal cross-border travels remain elusive, quarantine hotels on the mainland are hotly sought after. Some Hong Kong students attending universities up north have not been able to secure a hotel room for quarantine, meaning they could miss a registration date for admissions, with some possibly forced to suspend their studies for 1 year. When asked if extra hotel quarantine quotas will be offered to them, Secretary for Education Choi Yuk-lin says the officials are in talks with mainland authorities. More details for the relevant measures will be out as soon as possible. The Education Bureau will also request mainland universities to offer special or more lenient arrangements in case of students' late registrations for admissions or for attending classes. Lawmaker Kirsten Yang says mainland authorities are highly concerned about the situation as well. Currently, these students could not apply for quarantine units through the Care Corridor scheme. That's an arrangement set up for mainland-bound travelers with special needs outside the daily quota of 2,000 at the Shenzhen Bayport. Yang says it's likely these students will be eligible for the scheme and not ruling out that mainland authorities would arrange charter flights and rides for them. As the quarantine period is 10 days long, Yang urged the authorities to come up with a solution as soon as possible before the new school year begins. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Persistently hot weather and the lack of rainfall have led to drought across large swathes of land and rivers in southwestern China. As many as 66 rivers and 25 reservoirs across the Chongqing area have dried up. Unstable water supply has affected at least 2.4 million residents. This as rainfall in the Yangtze basin has shrunk by 45% since July. Farmers expect this year's harvest to be drastically reduced. Drought also hit the electricity supply in Sichuan province. The hydropower-reliant province experienced intermittent power cuts, severely disrupting farm and factory operations. That's compounded by weeks-long heat waves that jacked up power demands. The local government has activated the highest level of emergency response measures. Electricity supply will be rationed, with residential use being prioritized. Overseas, Somalia forces say they have ended a deadly attack on a hotel in the capital by al-Qaeda-linked militants. Reports say at least 12 people were killed, mostly civilians, and 106 hostages, including women and children, were rescued. Extremist group al-Shabaab claimed responsibility for the attack on the Hyatt Hotel. Nazvi Karim reports.
It started with loud explosions at the Hyatt Hotel. This was quickly followed by the sound of gunfire. For the next 30 hours, as night spilled into day, volleys of gunshots could be heard echoing the capital, Mogadishu. That's how long it took for Somali forces to finally quell the attack. Abdullahi Malin Gafoor, a politician who survived the attack, said 2 of his friends were killed in an explosion after they ran towards what they thought would be a safe area. Police have yet to provide a detailed explanation of how the attack unfolded, and it remains unclear how many gunmen entered the hotel. The assault is the first major terror incident in Mogadishu since Somalia's new leader, Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, took over in May. In a statement, United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres condemned the attack, saying the UN supports Somalia in their fight against terrorism. The French news agency Agence France-Presse earlier reported that all the gunmen had been killed, citing a security commander. Al-Shabaab has been fighting to topple the Somali government for more than 10 years. The Hyatt is a hotel popular with lawmakers and other government officials. During the battle, gunmen were reported to be holding an unknown number of hostages on the second floor of the building. They had also bombed out the stairs to make access harder for government forces. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
Still ahead, Sevastopol and Crimea on alert after drone attacks. The new king of South Africa's Zulu nation enthroned. And 12 injured in a bus accident at Choi Hung Estate in East Kowloon. Welcome back to TVB News. Russian authorities reported shooting down drones in Crimea Saturday as Ukraine steps up action in the annexed peninsula. This as Russian forces continue to press forward with attacks in the north, south, and east of Ukraine. Matthew Bray reports.
All seems calm, but authorities in annexed Crimea say a drone was shot down above the headquarters of the Russian Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol. The latest incident underlines Russian forces' fragility in the territory seized from Ukraine in 2014. The Russians claim there were no casualties or damage, but comes off the back of successful Ukraine strikes weeks prior. Russian forces are grinding on with an offensive in the direction of Bakhmut, west of Lugansk. The city is one of the last Ukraine strongholds in the east, and its loss would see Moscow a step closer to controlling all the Donbass. As a result, residents are leaving. Evacuation is mandatory, but people can opt out by filling in a form declaring their intention to stay. Ukraine leader Volodymyr Zelensky warned that Russia may try something particularly vicious on the 31st anniversary of Ukraine's independence from Soviet rule on Wednesday. He urged his fellow countrymen across Ukraine to remain vigilant. The shelling around the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant is ongoing. The city of Nikopol, which lies across the Dnipro River, was hit 5 times overnight, according to a regional governor. And burnt-out Russian tanks are on display in Kyiv, drawing the attention of pedestrians.
We're proud for our army. We believe that we can win. We believe that it will be maybe not so far away our winning.
Matthew Bray, TVB News.
Dock workers at Britain's largest container port, Felixstowe, are launching 8 days of strikes from Sunday over a pay dispute. The Unite Union says the parent company CK Hutchison Holding Limited prioritizes profit over paying decent wages. This as rail workers began a series of large-scale strikes that have brought rail services to a halt over pay, cuts to jobs, and terms and conditions. The Secretary General of the National Union of Rail, Maritime and Transport Workers, or RMT, said that its members are not going to accept an 8% pay increase, with inflation running higher than that. More than 40,000 RMT members were on strike on Saturday, affecting services up and down the country. The new king of South Africa's Zulu nation was enthroned in a ceremony in KwaZulu-Natal province Saturday. Misuzulu Kazalithini was crowned as the leader of the Zulu people, but some members of the royal family dispute his right to succeed his father. They prefer 2 other brothers as successors. However, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa recognizes the new king and is set to present him with a certificate later this year. The ceremony was a colorful display of Zulu culture with hundreds of people dressed in traditional regalia. The Zulu ethnic group is South Africa's largest, with some 12 million people, and the Zulu king has control over nearly 28,000 square kilometers of land. Back here at home, dancer Moy Lee, who has been under intensive care at Queen Elizabeth Hospital for 3 weeks after the Mirror concert accident, is said to be making some small progress in his treatment. The dancer suffered cervical vertebrae damage after a giant screen crashed onto him during the concert. He remains under intensive care with stable vital signs. The dancer's father says they are taking the medical team's advice to carry out various treatments to help his recovery. The father also thanked all of those who showed their support or shared their experience of spinal injuries. 12 people were injured after a bus rammed into a lamppost next to a bus stop in East Kowloon. The incident happened at around noon. A KMB Route 277X bus crashed onto the sidewalk near Pikhoi House at Choi Hung Estate. Most of the injured people were passengers on board the bus. They all sustained minor injuries. A 14-year-old girl who was sitting on the bench at the bus stop was hit by shards of glass. The 32-year-old bus driver was also injured. 9 people were taken to hospital for treatment. That is the news. Pearl Magazine is up shortly. See you then. Good night.